Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhavan Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarajari Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhavad Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarajari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privajakacharya Asto Tartata Shri Srimad Nitya Lila Pravistas Divine Grace Shilavai Karan Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Iskan's DVD founder Acharya Jagad Guru Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Murli Dar Shri Gaurachandra Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter. We're beginning the new chapter, verse 11, which is entitled The Transcendental Qualities of Brittasura. Chapter summary. This chapter describes Brittasura's great qualities. When the prominent commanders of the demons fled, not hearing Brittasura's advice, Brittasura condemned them all as cowards. Speaking very bravely, he stood alone to face the demigods. When the demigods saw Brittasura's attitude, they were so afraid that they practically fainted. And Brittasura began trampling them down. Unable to tolerate this, Indra, the king of the demigods, threw his club at Brittasura, but Brittasura was such a great hero that he easily caught the club with his left hand and used it to beat Indra's elephant. Struck by the blow of Brittasura, the elephant was pushed back 14 yards and fell with Indra on its back. King Indra had first accepted Vishvarupa as his priest and thereafter killed him. Reminding Indra of his heinous activities, Brittasura said, "If one is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and depends on Lord Vishnu in every respect, then victory, opulence, and peace of mind are all inevitably available. Such a person has nothing for which to aspire in the three worlds. The Supreme Lord is so kind that he especially favors such a devotee by not giving him opulence that will hamper his devotional service. Therefore, I wish to give up everything for the service of the Lord. I wish always to chant the glories of the Lord and engage in his service. Let me become unattached to my worldly family and make friendships with the devotees of the Lord. I do not desire to be promoted to the higher planetary systems, even to the Dhruvaloka or Brahmaloka, nor do I desire an unconquerable position within this material world. I have no need for such things." Verse 1. Shri Shuku Vacha Te Evam Samasto Dharmam Vacha Pratyor Achetasa Naiva Grananta Sambranta Palayana Para Nirpa. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, "O king, Brittasura, the commander-in-chief of the demons, advised his lieutenants in the principles of religion, but the cowardly demoniac commanders, intent upon fleeing the battlefield, were so disturbed by fear that they could not accept his words." Text 2 and 3. O King Parikshit, the demigods, taking advantage of a favorable opportunity presented by time, attacked the army of the demons from the rear and began driving away the demoniac soldiers, scattering them here and there as if their army had no leader. Seeing the pitiable condition of his soldiers, Brittasura, the best of the Asuras, who was called Indra Satru, the enemy of Indra, was very much aggrieved. Unable to tolerate such reverses, he stopped and forcibly rebuked the demigods, speaking the following words in an angry mood. Text 4. So today is listed that it should be read through verse 5. That's correct? So we'll read through verse 5 and keep to the schedule. Verse 4. Kimva ucharitar matur davad bi prastato hatai nahi bita vada slagyo na svargya sura maninam. O demigods, these demoniac soldiers have taken birth uselessly. Indeed, they come from the bodies of their mothers exactly like stool. What is the benefit of killing such enemies from behind while they are running in fear? One who considers himself a hero should not kill an enemy who is afraid of losing his life. Such killing is never glorious, nor can it promote one to the heavenly planets. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Vritrasura rebuked both the demigods and the demoniac soldiers because the demons were running in fear of their lives. This could be made louder. Running in fear of their lives, and the demigods were killing them from behind. The actions of both were abominable. When a fight takes place, the opposing parties must be prepared to fight like heroes. A hero never runs from the field of battle. He always fights face to face, determined to gain victory or lay down his life in the fight. That is heroic. Killing an enemy from behind is also inglorious. When an enemy turns his back and runs in fear of his life, he should not be killed. That is the etiquette of military science. Vritrasura insulted the demoniac soldiers by comparing them to the stool of their mothers. Both stool and a cowardly son come from the abdomen of the mother, and Vritrasura said that there is no difference between them. A similar comparison was given by Tulsidas, who commented that a son and urine both come from the same channel. In other words, semen and urine both come from the genitals. But semen produces a child, whereas urine produces nothing. Therefore, if a child is neither a hero nor a devotee, he is not a son but urine. Similarly, Chanaka Pandit also says, Korita putrena jatena yo na vidvan dharmika. Kanena chakshusha kimva chakshu bidaiva kevalam. What is the use of a son who is neither glorious nor devoted to the Lord? Such a son is like a blind eye, which simply gives pain, but cannot help one see. Text 5. Yadi va pradane shradha saram va klushlaka hridi agre tishtata matram me nached gramya suke spriha. O insignificant demigods, if you truly have faith in your heroism, if you have patience in the cores of your hearts, and if you are not ambitious for sense gratification, please stand before me for a moment. Purport. Rebuking the demigods, Vritrasura challenged, O demigods, if you are actually heroes, stand before me now and try to show your prowess. If you do not wish to fight, if you are afraid of losing your lives, I shall not kill you. For unlike you, I am not so evil-minded as to kill persons who are neither heroic nor willing to fight. If you have faith in your heroism, please stand before me. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Amlitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Vanchakalpadrubhyas cha kripasindubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, this is very profound and very, very amazing. Thank you. Hare Krishna. We see in the next chapter Vritrasura's glorious death. Shukadeva Goswami said, hearing the straightforward instructions word of Vritrasura, later we'll see how he's giving all encouragement that you, Indra, are meant to kill me. You've been endowed with this thunderbolt weapon, which is so much fortified with the the great voluminous austerities of the Dichi Muni, the words of the sages and the words of the Lord, the prediction of the Lord will certainly come to pass. Kill me without hesitation. And of course, it's revealed how he will go back home, back to Godhead, as he was cultivated in his previous life as Chitraketu, becoming a perfect devotee of Lord Sankarshan. And at Indra, he would also have his desires to be fulfilled, to regain the heavenly planets, and it's described there, to continue in the process of repeated birth, death, disease, and old age. So actually, Brittasura, who by practically observable purposes is going to be the loser in the fight, is actually victorious. So here in this statement, verse 19 of the next chapter, he says, "O great demon, I see by your discrimination and endurance in devotional service, despite your dangerous position, that you are a perfect devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul and friend of everyone. You have surmounted the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu, and because of this liberation, you have given up the demoniac mentality and have attained the position of an exalted devotee." Prabhupada says, Vrittasura was considered a demon, but actually he was more than qualified as a devotee, or Mahaparushya. If one somehow becomes a devotee of the Supreme Lord, whatever his position, he can be brought to the position of a perfect person. In a similar way of thinking, Srila Prabhupada was criticized, and even Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was criticized. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was criticized for giving Brahmin initiation to those not born Jata Gosai in a Brahmin family, which is completely in accord with all Shastras, that if one exhibits the qualification of a Brahmin, irregardless of when and where and how he has taken his birth, such a person should be accepted as a Brahmin, whereas someone who is so-calledly born in a Brahmin family but does not exhibit the qualifications or perform properly the duties and responsibilities of a Brahmin, he should be rejected and not accepted as a Brahmin despite his so-called birth. And what to speak of Srila Prabhupada, who came here to the Western countries, Paskita Deshatarane, obeisances unto you, O servant of Saraswati Goswami. You are so kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev and are delivering these Western countries, which are filled with impersonalism and voidism, or we can say atheism, hedonism, envy of God, etc., etc. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said, I think it's in his Chaitanya Shikshamritam, that the only way that one can understand the caliber or potency of a Vaishnava is to see how many Vaishnavas he has created. So people completely outside of Vedic culture, Srila Prabhupada is elevating them very, very quickly. The first Brahminical initiations in ISKCON were in 1968. And Prabhupada had only had, his most senior disciples were less than a year and a half in the movement. But in accord with Shukadeva Goswami's statement in the second canto, Kirata Hulinda Pulinda Pulkasha, that all, no matter what type of sinful race they come from, can be elevated by the guidance and the potency of a pure devotee. Actually, it's steady. I didn't even think to research, but here it is. It says it's right here. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami says in the 4th chapter, which is Shukadeva Goswami's prayers for invocation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord, for he is the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Anyone can be purified if he takes shelter of a pure devotee and molds his character according to the pure devotee's direction. Then, even if one is a Kirata, Andhra, Palinda, or, and this word is very much applicable to the what's going on today, my friend Bhakti Anugrah, I know him as Janardhan, Bhakti Anugrah Janardhan Swami, he's been performing duties in India, New Delhi, Vrindavan for many years, but we began our relationship in a kind of a sharing relationship between Boston and Toronto some 30 years ago. So he came to the Harinam in New York City, Union Square, and he said, wow, how many species of life are here? And I said, 8,400,000 species of life. He says, really? I believe you, you know. So here, this one word, even if one is Kirata, Andhra, Palinda, or a whatever, that more or less sums it up, he can be purified and elevated to the position of a Mahapurusha, an elevated devotee of the Lord. So Indra continues, O Britasura, demons are generally conducted by the mode of passion. What to speak of ignorance? We read in the important chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, 14 and 17, is divisions of faith and the modes of material nature, that spiritual activities are conducted by the mode of goodness, and further by the mode of Shuddha Sattva, transcendental goodness, and activities that are suited towards Icha Dvesa Samutena, envy and hatred of the Supreme Lord, or demoniac activities. Demons are generally conducted by the lower modes of nature. And we can see that those who are more suited, of course it's mixed. Someone might be more in the mode of goodness, so-called cleanliness, like, you know, people keep their apartments or townhouses or mansions and penthouses, say like Millionaires Row, which it was called 100 years ago, Fifth Avenue, north of 59th Street, where all the big wealthy people had their fancy homes, very clean, you know, but how clean is their consciousness? Cleanliness is next to godliness. Even in Prabhupada's original Macmillan Bhagavad Gita, one of the paintings in the caption was, "You are what you eat." You know, it showed, you know, the person eating like a hog and transmigrating to become a hog, etc. Whereas devotees, they're eating patram and offering to the Lord patram pushpam palam tayam. So Indra is saying demons are generally conducted by the lower modes. Therefore, what a great wonder it is that although you are a demon, you have adopted the mentality of a devotee and have fixed your mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, who is always situated in pure goodness. So Indra wondered, how could Britasura have been elevated to the position of such an exalted devotee? As for Prahlad Maharaj, for example, he was initiated by Narada Muni. What Prahlad learned in the womb. So it was possible for him to become a great devotee, even though he's born of Hiranyakashipu and was surrounded always by bad association. For Britasura, however, Indra could not detect such causes. Who was Britasura's spiritual master in his life as Britasura? Therefore, he was struck with wonder that Britasura was such an exalted devotee and can fix his mind without deviation upon the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is actually the perfection of life, is that one can fix one's mind perfectly on the Lord at the time of death, because such strength of mind guarantees one to go back home, back to Godhead. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram. A person who is fixed in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord Hari, the Lord of the highest auspiciousness, swims in the ocean of nectar. For him, what is the use of water in small ditches? So, a concomitant realization comes as we advance in devotional service, is certainly and very wonderfully that we don't have any interest in any type of material happiness in the material world, which Prabhupada describes in the purport. I do not want the facilities for happiness even in the highest planets, Brahmaloka, Satyaloka. Not to speak of this earth or the lower planets, I simply want to return home back to Godhead. And Prabhupada gives us a very, very beautiful, confidential insight into what is the highest pleasure to be aspired for. This is the determination of a pure devotee. A pure devotee is never attracted by any exalted position within this material world. And Lord Chaitanya also teaches his devotees, Nadanam, Najanam, Na Sundarim, Kavitam Vajagad Isha Kamaye. I do not want wealth. And we see that with the symptoms of the age of Kali, if one has a lot of money, then he's automatically assumed to be a very respectable, practically saintly person. And practically speaking, that's one of the main ways that this Donald Trump became president, because he's promoting himself as being such a rich person and he's been so successful in business, so I'll do the same thing for the country. And people not understanding what is the qualification for such a responsible position kind of gullibly believe it and go, okay. Do not want wealth, do not want followers, do not want what we chant in the devotee praise in the song Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. I do not want a beautiful and attractive wife. He simply wants to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead like the inhabitants of Vrindavan, Srimati Radharani, the gopis, Krishna's father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, Krishna's friends and Krishna's servants. He wants to associate with Krishna's atmosphere of Vrindavan's beauty. These are the highest ambitions of a devotee of Krishna. So the devotee, he does not wish to go back home to the topmost Goloka Vrindavan for his own pleasure, but he wishes to go because Krishna wants him to go. Devotees of Lord Vishnu may aspire for a position in Vaikuntha Loka, but a devotee of Krishna never aspires even for the facilities of Vaikuntha, of which 4 are primary: Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, and Sharshti. Equal opulence with the Lord, having a body just like the Lord's, living on the same planet or very near the Lord. And what's the other one? Two different things, okay. But a devotee never aspires even for that. He wants to return to Goloka Vrindavan and associate with Lord Krishna in his eternal pastimes. any material happiness is like a water in a ditch, whereas the spiritual happiness eternally enjoyed in the spiritual world is like an ocean of nectar in which a devotee wants to swim. We see in the exalted, ecstatic statements of great Mahabhagavats like Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati Pad in his, for example, Vrindavan Mahima Amrita, where he's realizing the topmost superlative, super excellent greatness of Vrindavan, and compared to any other types of happiness or realms, he completely discounts it. Devotees, I would prefer to live as a worm and stool of a hog in Vrindavan than to be a resident of Vaikuntha or even to be one of Krishna's queens at Dwarka, for example. How great is the Lord's personal abode? So, Vritasura is doing his duty. There's one statement in this section that Vritasura was, by the curse of Mother Parvati, cursed to become a demon. And Krishna is very expert in one activity or one pastime. So many different things are being accomplished. So this battle for the heavenly planets between the demons and the demigods, this Leela. So Vritasura was sent to be Indra, how is it said here? Indra Satru, the enemy of Indra. Or he who Indra is the enemy of. The oblation was said wrong. So by that, Vritasura, who Indra is the enemy of, that Indra will have the upper hand and ultimately kill him. And very, very quickly, we see, what is the chapter? Just the appearance of the demon Vritasura. And now this chapter, the transcendental qualities of Vritasura, and the fight is going on, not for a very long time. And then Vritasura, he performs his duty as he was destined, and ultimately achieves his real desire to go back home, back to Godhead, for which the curse for Mother Parvati upon King Chitraketu facilitated very, very rapidly. So this is a very good lesson in the Srimad Bhagavatam, to be careful not to judge things on a superficial or external level. There are always many, many deep things going on in relationship to how the Lord is guiding and elevating his devotees in all the different statuses of life. The devotees will be different. It is recommended to read the Lord's Vrindavan pastimes during the Purushottam month, and in particular the Acharyas have given or recommended chapter 14, Lord Brahma's prayers to Krishna for forgiveness after his attempt to steal his playmates, the cowherd boys, and their young wards, the calves. A year or two later, then Krishna was given charge to be a cowherd boy, take care of the full cows and bulls. But at that stage, he's only 6 years old, that he was just taking care of the small animals. And there, Lord Brahma is saying, if one would be able to count, smash this whole material universe down to like fine powder or molecules and be able to count all those molecules, which is an impossible task. But one little interesting note, the Acharyas have actually said that Lord Sankarshan is able and has done that. So if you ever want to know the count of how many atoms are in the universe, you can ask Lord Sankarshan. And he's pleased, he'll disclose the number. It would be impossible. But in the purports, there's a commentary of Sanatana Goswami says there are innumerable. So Lord Brahma is relating that, you can't count the number of atoms in this universe. Similarly, you cannot count the innumerable transcendental qualities of the Lord. So Sanat Goswami says there are innumerable transcendental qualities of the Lord, in the same way there are innumerable living entities. The number of jivatmas, you cannot count, unlimited. And the reason given is that each one of those living entities, ourselves, jivas, are unique, that the Lord has manifests a transcendental quality, one of his innumerable transcendental qualities, that jiva can appreciate in a very unique way, unduplicated by any other. So it is a very important art to become adept at, to be able to appreciate another devotee's point of view in how Krishna is to be pleased, but at the same time, in accord with following the Guru Parampara, and special emphasis is always there to understand what is Krishna consciousness through your spiritual master who has heard it from his spiritual master. Lord Brahma, in his revelation of Brahma Samhita, which is recounted in the 9th chapter of the 2nd canto, Prabhupada writes in the purport, one should not think oneself as elevated as Lord Brahma, that Krishna will initiate him and make him Veda Garbha, complete in all Vedic knowledge simply by his flute song. But if one wants the real message, just as Lord Brahma received it, one should approach the current link in the parampara. So these things are all very, very wonderful and completely transcendental and are on the highest level of personalism, pure spiritual personalism. And for that, the very strong admonishment to not criticize other devotees is very, very important, because if one does so, one will block or shut down one's ability to appreciate the transcendental endowment of uniqueness of the Lord between his innumerable devotees. There's a very nice verse at the beginning of the 16th chapter of the Antya Lila, which is entitled Rescuing the Lord from the Sea, that the the place, the time, the mode of progress that the particular devotee goes through in offering his transcendental loving service to the Lord is so, I forget the exact word, special and unique, that the Lord is so much attracted that he wants to personally try to come and understand that himself. And of course, to the supreme degree, that's Krishna coming as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to understand those exalted feelings and what his topmost devotee goes through. Why is she so attracted to me? I must try to understand. Exalted literatures, for example, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Prema Samputa, give insight into the highest reciprocal feelings of love exchanged on the transcendental devotional platform. So as all devotees, they're I forget which literature it's in, but there's this simple statement, very profound, that the ecstasy of Srimati Radharani is the essence of spiritual life. Like we say, preaching is the essence. So the essence of all, the quintessence of all essences is the feelings of the topmost devotee, who is the source of devotional service for every devotees in whatever rasa, whatever mood, whatever status of life, whatever position, within all the gradations of the spiritual realm or within this material realm. So everyone is, in that way, representing a unique aspect of this most glorious and topmost selfless love, epitomized by the greatest devotee. Prabhupada says, no one can excel Srimati Radharani in her devotional service. So each devotee represents a unique, tiny but quantitative but qualitative, exalted aspect in our pure devotional status. So there's much that we will learn from this these two coming chapters, Transcendental Qualities of Brittasura. Actually, the prayers of Brittasura are very, very beautiful and special. I remember some years ago, His Holiness Satsvarup Maharaj was preparing a course for the VIHE in Vrindavan simply called Vandanam Prayers, and there's a book that he wrote about that, collecting and explaining and describing some of the most exalted prayers of different devotees in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'll conclude by reading just one. This is verse 24 of this chapter 11. O my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I again become their servant, so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes, my words always glorify these attributes, and my body always engaged in the loving service of your Lordship. So once again, he's speaking this on the battlefield, in perfect consciousness. So especially here in New York City, our devotional service is practically most of the time, unless we're locked up in the ashram and the door is closed and the lights are out and we're asleep. But even then, you know, different types of demoniac ghosts might float around and want to try to haunt us. But anyway, we're on a battlefield. So, Brittasura, he is keeping great mental equilibrium and concentration. And this is ultimately the test in devotional service in the material world, that we tolerate the dualities of this material world and we don't give up our devotional service and the practice of the bona fide qualities of an actual devotee under any provocation or tilting. Prabhupada said this material world is always tilting of this material world, and I think the epitome of such tilting is New York City. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
So on this battlefield, we're in the battlefield of New York. So I was wondering, what qualities of Vitrasura could we focus on more to be more equipoised? Like you're saying, like no matter where we're at, it's going to be a battle, and Maya is sometimes on purpose testing us. So how can we get to this stage? How can we make it through the tests, and how can we get to the stage where we're not tested?
Prabhupada has said that Krishna never gives his devotee a test that they can't pass. And the Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his last writing, Svadhyama Dvadastakam, 12 verses of my self-imposed regulative principles, he says that my determination is always to be in remembrance of what is my eternal loving relationship with Krishna. In order to accomplish this austere vow, I practice, and he lists different things. I keep purity prominent in all of my practical dealings. Exercise great humility in all of my dealings with everyone, no matter who they are. And then he goes on to say, there are many, many transcendental qualities that are associated with those who are fixed up at the lotus feet of Sriman Mahaprabhu. Only such transcendental nectarian qualities which are practiced and recommended by the Lord himself are indeed my own. So the answer to the question, all of them. So you can read the 26 qualities of the devotees, and so much recommendation. And right in hand, we can look at the activities of Srila Prabhupada. There are so many wonderful remembrances of disciples and devotees who had his association, seeing him on the battlefield, what to speak of on the battlefield, just wanting to keep fighting. You know, when Prabhupada came to India and they were doing engagements, sometimes 6, 8 in the day, up until midnight, devotees who were like 3 times younger than Prabhupada. Prabhupada is like 75 years old. They're in their early 20s. They're all exhausted, and Prabhupada is just going on just like a locomotive, unstoppable. And Prabhupada said that from his example, that he simply wants to preach and distribute Krishna consciousness. That's where the energy, that's where the protection, that's where all the blessings are, because ultimately what will please the Lord the most, Agadi Prush in one of his recent classes, which I was hearing in Vrindavan on Mayapur TV, we should always be thinking how we can be better servants. How will the Lord be more, how can the Lord be more pleased? So if we think like that, then protection and encouragement and enthusiasm and bright intelligence, how to do according to time, place, and circumstances, automatically there.
Hare Krishna. So you touched on this point about Maharaj Chitraketu and the point of that pastime with him and Parvati being that we shouldn't judge a situation because there are deeper things at play there, especially when we're talking about devotees.
Mm-hmm.
And so, on the converse of that, how do we stop ourselves from using this justification on ourselves? I can say from my own experience that, you know, sometimes the tendency is there to say, oh no, this isn't Maya, or this isn't a problem, this is actually something that's you know, it's a higher thing, or it's meant for my purification, and it ends up being a justification out of something that we actually need. How can we defend against that?
I don't think I completely understand. Maybe if you could give me a little more illustrative example in action of...
Example. Say like somebody has some problem,
Yeah.
like, but they say, you know, in your mind, because this generally happens to oneself, you know, in
your mind, or the other person who's having a problem's mind?
Well, whoever it is, if it's me, in my mind.
Okay.
In my mind, I may say there may be something that is detrimental, but there's a tendency to justify it because the false ego is there, the mind is there, that this is an okay thing, this is something it's on a deeper level. It's something that is that's positive. We take something negative that's bad for us and twist it in a positive way.
I'll try to say something. We'll see if it comes to what you're wanting. We have a great responsibility, moment to moment, like on a regular daily basis, to keep things on track. We're trying to make a combined cooperative effort. Sankirtan means cooperating to make programs, to invite, like inviting people here to the Bhakti Center, or temples, or we're trying to do the Harinam outside, and just I didn't come on time, but Gopal Champu told me yesterday there's some crazy drunk guy picking up the sign and yelling and screaming and going to smash it on one of our heads, and then there was a whole scene, and he and Natabar had to deal with that, so that's something that you got to deal with, call the police, take a picture, and luckily other people came around, hey, why are you hassling them? They're doing a peaceful thing. Who are you? Get out of here, and this and that. So that's a graphic example of something that you got to have do hands-on right away. If somebody's doing wrong or something's off or it's causing it's going to disturb other devotees, and something has to be done timely. Whereas there's a very nice disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Daivi Shakti, in Vrindavan, and Vrindavan is a real polarizing pressure cooker place that either you're going to sink or swim, either you're really have the right motivation or not, and said, I've been here for many years, and I see that Krishna gives everyone enough rope to hang themselves. But perhaps on a more lighter level that, devotional service in practice is a learning experience, and devotees who are sincere, Prabhupada would encourage them, mistakes are the pillar of success. So, in the course of executing our devotional service, mistakes might be there. And Prabhupada had said, as described in the Nectar of Devotion, that it's not that one has to undergo atonement, because the potency of continued process of devotional service is in and of itself necessary for reinstatement. But, these things, according to time, place, circumstance, and person, are very, very, to be carefully ascertained. So to put a general formula, like how to make instant oatmeal, perhaps it's not like that. All right, so we can stop now and receive the darshan of their lordships, Shri Shri Radha Murlidhar, Shri Gaurachandra, Nrsimha Varaha Bhagavan, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.